Hi, and welcome to Pet Pals. Every week we showcase animals that are available for adoption through the Frederick County Division of Animal Control and Pet Adoption Center. I'm Linda Shea, with me is Randy Cooper, and we're starting our show today with one of the puppies in the shelter. Hard to believe that this big guy is a puppy. He's only about a year old. His name is Diesel, and he was turned in by his owners. They were no longer able to care for him. Because he is a puppy and because he is such a big guy, we have what's known as the puppy process. So we take up to 4 applications. That allows us to screen families, to take a look at history with animals, and if you've had a puppy before, if you've had this kind of breed before. All of that helps in placing. A lot of times folks get very enthusiastic and very excited about adopting a puppy, not realizing all the work that goes into a puppy. Diesel has some good manners to start with at a year old, but he needs some work. He pulls on the leash. He gets a little too investigative when you've got treats in your pocket. But he does sit very well. He's very responsive to people. He's overall a fairly gentle giant. And if you're guessing what his weight is, I'll give you a few seconds to think about that. He's only about a year. He's a mix between a Rottweiler and a Pit Bull, according to his owners. I see a little bit of Mastiff in there, and that's part of the joy of a shelter dog, is that sometimes, even though we have a history, a background, the genetics are just unique in each and every one of them. So he is large. At a year old, he's 102 pounds already. So you can expect him to get to be maybe 130, maybe 125, 130, I would estimate, when he's fully grown. We've brought him up to speed on vaccines, on preventatives, on deworming. We do have him slated for an older children adult home only, and that has nothing to do with his temperament or demeanor, but it has a lot to do with his size. And unfortunately, because he's got needs some work on manners, he could easily bowl over a toddler and do some damage inadvertently, so we're trying to avoid that. So that's part of the process. But if you're interested in this type of breed, if you've got experience with large puppy breeds, he has a great temperament, great disposition, and he is looking for a forever home. This sweet little girl we named Emmy. She came to us as a stray from Poinsett Lane in Frederick, and she's about 1 to 2 years old. And usually, if you watch Pet Pals on a regular basis, you'll hear me talk about my favorite shelter animal, and this week it happens to be this little girl. Came in as a stray, and she was fearful in her cage, not sure what's going on. Not unusual for most of the animals that end up here, even if they're owned. They're not quite sure why they're here, what's going to be the outcome, what their disposition is going to end up being. So she was a little shy, a little intimidated, but as you can see, she's certainly come out of her shell. She is extremely friendly, very responsive to people. You can tell by her tail at the moment she enjoys being handled, being paid attention to, and she's not the least bit camera shy. Again, about 1 to 2 years old. We estimate ages, especially on strays, based on their teeth, based on their overall body condition and their weight. And if you're thinking about what weight she might be, she's solid, and it's a little deceptive, but she is a very solid 59 pounds. I would have put her at smaller, just from looking at her features are pretty petite. We've brought her up to speed on vaccines. We do, for dogs, we do a distemper combination and a kennel cough prevention. We've also brought her up to speed on deworming, flea and tick prevention as well. She is, according to our exam, she's still intact, and part of the adoption fee with dogs, cats, and bunnies includes the fact that we spay and neuter every animal that leaves here, dogs, cats, and bunnies, prior to being adopted, and that is our contribution to try to avoid the overpopulation of unwanted pets. So she's certainly a sweet girl at 1 to 2 years old. Given her breed, she can live another 10, 12, maybe even 15 years with good care. With your adoption, you are entitled to a free vet exam within 3 days of adoption. We ask that you call your local vet, or we have a list of about 45, 50 vets that participate with us. You're also entitled to a voucher where you can get her rabies vaccinated. Rabies vaccine is required in the state of Maryland for all dogs, cats, and ferrets once they hit 4 months old. Some vets will do that vaccine at 3 months old, so it depends on the vet. We also do behavior assess all of the dogs in the shelter. So when you come in and visit with a dog, you can get an idea of whether how they interact with other dogs in the shelter, how they interact with food, how they interact with our kennel staff overall. So we do disclose everything that we know about an animal's health, temperament, and behavior to help you make a good decision. So if you are interested in a sort of petite bully breed young dog, this is Emmy, came to us as a stray, but we are looking forward to having her adopted. Harley's going to be the last dog we take a look at this week. Fortunately, a lot of our dogs have been adopted, so our dog population is unusually low. So we'll take a look at Harley, and then the rest of the animals will be different species. But Harley is about 3 years old. We have her down as a pit bull mix, and a lot of times when animals come in previously owned, we do write down what the owner tells us, because sometimes the owner has a different history or a different knowledge of the background. When we look at Harley, though, we see some mix in there definitely of maybe pug. She's got an underbite, she's got that curly tail, she's got a pretty small features. She's about 41 pounds at 3 years old. We have brought her up to speed on vaccines. Again, she will also be spayed prior to leaving here. Part of the adoption includes spaying, neutering, microchipping, current on vaccines. So there's really a lot that's included in our adoption. Harley is 3, so her adoption fee would be $92.50, and that covers everything I listed, plus so much more. We do have her slated also for older children, adult home only. She is pretty active. She's not very tolerant of younger children. A lot of times parents just need to do the parent thing and supervise, but a dog this size, sometimes if you have a toddler that's eye level, dogs can view that as a challenge, and children a lot of times don't pick up on animal cues, so staring her down is not a good idea. Staring any dog down is not a good idea. So that's why we have her slated for older children, adult home only. She will be much happier and much more comfortable in that type of environment. Again, she was turned in. The people that had her for about 2 months, and then the place where they were living did not allow dogs. So that's one thing you really need to consider prior to taking a pet into your family, is that the long-term commitment has to be there. Dogs this size, especially this breed, can live 10, 12, 15 years, so you want to make sure that you take into account if there's going to be any moves, if there's going to be any family changes, what will happen to the animal, and is it fair to take on an animal just for a couple of months only to have to turn around and turn them into a shelter or rehome them that quickly. Certainly animals deserve consistency, especially dogs, in their life. So you want to make sure that you take into consideration any animal that you're going to bring into your family and understand that it really is a lifelong commitment. But Harley is here with us now, and she is looking for a forever home. We have behavior assessed her. We have her information from previous owners as to what she's been used to. So we encourage you, if you're looking for sort of a medium-sized dog, just come into the shelter. The best way to pick a pet is actually to come in and interact with that animal here. So this is Harley, again, looking for a forever home. This sweet kitty is JJ. JJ has been on Pet Pals before. He came to the shelter back in October. We do not have a time limit on animals coming into the shelter, and that's probably one of the most common questions we get asked: how long do you keep them? We're open admission. We take in any animal that needs us from within Frederick County. We are 100% county tax funded, and that's why we only take animals in from the county. That's what's fair. So JJ came to us back in October. He's been around for a while. He is still happy and healthy, and he is acclimated just fine. So he's fine here at the shelter. We're just looking to place him in a forever home eventually. At the moment, he is slated for what's known as our kitty cabana. So he's sort of getting an upgrade in accommodations. He's going from a traditional stainless steel cage on the adoption floor into our free-roaming cat area. And that's mainly because he's been here for such a long time. It is time for him to stretch his legs a little bit more than what he's had. He's also going to be placed in there with another cat, which we're going to take a look at shortly, Ivy. When we put cats in the kitty cabana, oftentimes they're cats that didn't know each other prior to coming to the shelter. We do have a separate transition cage within the kitty cabana that allows them to acclimate to one another, and the hope is that eventually, within a couple of weeks, that they are free roaming within the whole kitty cabana and living harmoniously. Anytime you introduce one cat to another, you want to take into consideration that takes some time and it takes some patience. It can take 8 to 12 months for adult cats to become acclimated to one another. So if you have an existing cat in your home, you want to take that into consideration. We can offer you all sorts of tips and tricks. And typically domestic cats, if they have enough room to get away from each other, if they've been around other pets, if they've had an indoor life before, they will acclimate. It's just a matter of sometimes being creative and patient on the part of the pet owner. But this is JJ. Again, he's been here since October. He is an adult. He's about 2 years old. He was turned in. His owner went into a nursing home. The family members couldn't keep him, so that's his backstory. But he is gorgeous. He's white with brown tabby. As you can tell, he's very agreeable to being handled, to being pet, and sort of being a lap cat. So if that's what you're looking for, we encourage you to come in and visit JJ. This pretty little girl is Ivy. She came to us as a stray from John Klein Road at Smithsburg back in January, so she's not been in the shelter terribly long. She's been here about 6 weeks or so. She is your basic domestic long hair, black and white, and she came in a trap. And one of the things I love about our shelter is our progressive thinking. Sometimes domestic cats do wander into traps. Just because a cat arrives at the shelter in a trap doesn't mean it's feral, doesn't mean it's wild. It just means it might have been wandering and it smelled food and walked into a trap. So that's how Ivy came to us. She is going to be living with JJ, the cat that we just looked at, in our kitty cabana. So JJ is going to have the lion's share of the kitty cabana to start with. We're going to put Ivy in what we call our transition cage. So for about 10 to 14 days, they can acclimate to one another. The transition cage is sort of a hard plastic mesh where they can sniff each other and see each other without having true physical direct contact. And that's how we transition them. And then, of course, we observe all day long, trying to see if there's any issues. And typically there's not been. We've had up to 5 cats in that room that didn't know each other prior to coming to the shelter, and they've all successfully lived together. And typically they get adopted pretty quickly, so that's what we're hoping for these two. But Ivy, again, she's an adult. Her adoption fee, as it is for all of our adult cats, is $97.50. That covers getting her spayed, if it's a male cat, getting them neutered, getting a free vet exam within 3 days of adoption. We ask that you call your vet. We microchip every animal that leaves here, whether they're returned to owner or adopted, and we register that microchip as well. Microchipping is a 2-part process. You want to implant, but then you want to make sure that that information is registered, because the chip only emits a number. It does not emit your personal information. I think people sometimes misunderstand how that works. We do have microchip clinics through the year. You want to check with us and see if we have one coming up. And if you're interested in getting your pets microchipped, we can do that for you at $15, which is really a deal. But Ivy, again, is looking for a forever home. She is, over the weekend, she'll be in our kitty cabana transition cage. So if you have patience, if you like to brush cats, if you're looking for a cat that'll sit on your lap for quite a while, either JJ or Ivy would be good choices. So we're going to go ahead and take a short break, and when we come back, we'll take a look at some more animals that are looking for forever homes from the Frederick County Division of Animal Control.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
The Frederick County Health Department's On the Mark Adolescent Clubhouse and Sober Activity Center is a safe, community-based clubhouse which provides a starting point or continuing care link for peers supporting one another through the process of recovery. Membership is free and open to youth from ages 12 to 17 who are in treatment for substance abuse or are struggling in this area or who have completed a related program. The clubhouse offers fun and sober games, homework help, skills building, and many other activities. Located in the Health Department at 350 Montague Lane in Frederick, Maryland, the clubhouse is open Monday through Friday from 3:30 to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. To learn more, call 301-600-1126 or visit frederickcountymd.gov on the Mark. Please also like us on Facebook at On the Mark Clubhouse.
Ever wonder whether something is recyclable or not? Or maybe you forgot to set your cart out at the curb. Now there's an app for that. Download the free My Waste app for tablets and smartphones to have convenient access to a wide range of recycling and disposal information. Be notified of upcoming events, see your recycling schedule and set customized reminders, as well as instantly report curbside problems. Find out more at frederickcountymd.gov/mywaste.
Welcome back to Pet Pals. Now we're going to take a look at 5 more animals that are looking for homes through Frederick County Division of Animal Control. And this segment's going to show off our open admission status. We're going to start off with our little bunny friend here. This is Bandit. She's about 9 months old now. She's a lion head mix, and it's sort of hard to tell because of all of her white blending, but she does have some longer fur around her face, around the top of her head, which categorizes her as a lion head, but then she's got other things in there as well, so we've got her down as a mix. She's about 8 months old. She was purchased from, or gotten as a gift when she was about 4 months old, and after having her for 4 months in the family, she wasn't getting along with the family cats. And you have to remember that bunnies are prey animals, so I can sort of see why there was a discrepancy there, and I'm not sure what her housing was like, but you can't really put a prey animal in the middle of predators and expect them to get along. Bunnies need to be protected. They're very gentle. They're easy to scare. You can do significant damage if you don't hold them properly. You should never scruff a bunny. Please don't carry it by its ears. You need to support its back end. Its back legs are very, very strong, so they can push off and actually injure themselves if they're not handled properly. So we have several bunny experts in our pool of volunteers here at the shelter, so if you have questions, we can give you their information or collect your information if you ever have questions. We're more than happy to educate folks on getting a bunny. Bunnies are just as much work as dogs and cats as far as being a pet, maybe a little bit more work. They need a special diet. They need greens in their diet. They can have, one small carrot, tiny baby carrot a day. If you give them too many carrots, that can be too much sugar, too many calories for their system. And of course, as with any animal, any being, if they become overweight, that can cause problems for their joints, for their back, and it's just not a good thing. Bunnies need a variety in diet, including pellets that have nutritional value, as well as the vegetables that come from the store. And little Bandit here had been a bite case earlier in her stay. She came in early December, so she's been with us for a couple of months. And bunnies do bite. Again, they're prey animals. Their vision may not be that great, so if you stick your finger in their cage, which we highly discourage here at the shelter, if you put your face up to the cage, you are a prime target for them to take a little nibble, because if they can't see what they're looking at, or if you've just, and we've seen this historically in the past, if you've just had lunch or have Cheetos and you haven't washed your hands and you go to pet the bunny, they might just be likely to nibble on you. So you want to be careful of all of those things with any animal. Rabbit adoptions here include spaying and neutering. The adoption fee for bunnies is $50 and includes that. So again, if you're interested in adopting a bunny, there's more to it than just getting them and getting a cage. You need to make sure that they have some exercise time outside of a cage on a regular basis. You want to make sure that you have a vet in line in case something happens, and you need to be very observant. Bunnies can sometimes eat, they can develop hairballs, they can have some medical conditions that occur, so you need to be observant about their behavior. But this is Bandit. She is very friendly. She's about only 8 months old, 9 months old, and she is looking for a forever home. This little girl is Harriet. She came to us as a stray early February from Little Brook Drive in Frederick. She's about 6 to 8 years old, and she's front declawed. We discourage declawing at the shelter. We just see too many animals that come in that are turned in, after they're declawed. They don't use the litter box. They have some other behavior issues. They might resort to biting. So we heavily discourage it, although it is a discussion between you and your veterinarian. But Harriet is already declawed, so if you're looking for a declawed cat, she would be a good choice. Again, came to us as a stray, so we don't have a lot of history with her. She's about 8 pounds, 5 ounces. She's a calico. For those of you that may not know, calico cats are the state cat of Maryland. So a lot of times people come in looking specifically for calicos. We don't get calicos in very often, but when we do, they're pretty popular. And sometimes folks ask, well, what's the difference between a calico and a tortoiseshell? Calico cats, you can tell on Harriet, are very distinct patches of black and orange and white. They're just very distinct. Tortoiseshells are the black and orange it's blended together. And so that's primarily the difference there with the color pattern. As with all of our cats on the adoption floor, we've snap tested Harriet. We've tested her for 2 viruses that cats can carry, feline leukemia, feline immunodeficiency virus, and that, again, we test all of our cats prior to going up for adoption. That's important to know in case you have existing cats in your home. You want to know the virus status of any newcomers that you're going to introduce to your home. Harriet came to us spayed, so we know that her owners did the right thing. They had her spayed. They did have her front declawed, but the problem is once a cat is declawed, they really cannot defend themselves properly outside. So she needs to be an indoor cat for anybody who's interested in adopting her. 6 to 8 years old really is not old for a cat, sort of pre-middle age. Cats can live an average of 15 years, but with excellent care and, of course, being kept indoors, they can live much longer. We've had cats here that are not here, but from owners telling us that their cats have been 20, 21 years old, so that's a nice long life. She's got gorgeous green eyes. Again, she's got a great temperament. We color code our cats and dogs. She's color coded orange, meaning that she's agreeable to being held. She's pretty confident in her cage. She's very interested in exploring, which is why she's not necessarily a blue cat. Blue cats are more of our lap cats. But again, we encourage you to come in and visit. If you have any questions, of course, we're here to answer them for you. And this is Harriet, who also qualifies for a $20 discount because she is over 5 years old. So her adoption fee would be $72.50. This very active little girl is Sylvia. She's about 8 months old, so she's still considered a kitten. She was adopted from the shelter about 4 months ago. And during our adoption process, we do ask folks if they expect to be relocating, moving, if their lifestyle is going to change. And in most cases, people say no. Sometimes people say no, and then things do change. So the folks that adopted her moved and were unable to take her along, so she is considered a return to shelter back on the adoption floor. Hopefully the next go-round, the folks can keep her for a little bit longer, or for the rest of her life, as opposed to 4 months. She's about 9 pounds. She is very friendly, very active, very affectionate, just right up at the front of the cage, and has gotten a lot of attention from her personality and demeanor. Sometimes people come in and they are looking for a specific look to an animal. They're looking for a certain breed, a certain color of cat, a certain size. Overall, in my experience and all the time I've been sheltering, it really is an animal's personality, kind of like with people, that's going to make or break a relationship. So despite what you're thinking in your head of what you want to look at, Sylvia is one of those fairly nondescript. She's a dilute Torby. She's got the tabby markings. She's got the gray and some peach in there as well, kind of with her coat color. So she might not be an exotic looking kitten, but she definitely has a loving personality. You can tell she gives hugs. She likes to play with her toys. And at 8 months of age, she's still very young. So I would ask that if you're looking to adopt a pet, you come to the shelter and interact with some of the animals and just learn their personalities, because that's going to way surpass their looks, especially as they start to mature. But this is Sylvia, one of our kittens, available for adoption. Sweetie is about 8 to 10 years old, so she's one of the senior girls on our adoption floor. And again, one of the progressive parts of our shelter is that we don't discriminate against age. If an animal is happy and healthy, temperamentally sound, doing well in the shelter, we have adopted out dogs that are 15. We have adopted out cats that are older than 8 to 10. So Sweetie definitely does fall into that senior category. There's a joy in older animals. They tend to be more established in their personality. They tend to be a little more confident. And again, what you see is what you get. With Sweetie, the adoption fee for cats is normally $97.50, but because she is a senior and because she falls into that 10-year-old category, there's actually a $40 discount. So her adoption fee wouldn't be $97.50, it would only be $57.50 to adopt her. She's already spayed, she's microchipped, we've brought her up to speed on vaccines, deworming. She's a little over 7 pounds, not quite 8 pounds, so she's a little on the slender side for cats overall, which is not a bad thing given the fact that she's a senior. She's a little more shy, so we are promoting her this week in hopes that someone who understands senior cats, who understands shy cats, might take a good look at her, come into the shelter and visit. So again, this is Sweetie. She's about 8 to 10 years old, looking for a forever home. So we often talk about Frederick County Animal Control Division as being open admission, and nothing says open admission like farm animals, livestock. Here we have Sparta. He is a juvenile rooster, came in January at about 6 to 8 months of age, so at this point he's probably closer to the 8 or 9 month age mark. Came in as a stray from Thurmont, and we know from experience that sometimes roosters are difficult to place. A lot of times they mature and they start competing with their male counterparts for the hens in the area. So again, that's part of the reason I think it's difficult for us to adopt them out. However, if you have a small farm, a farmette, if you're looking for a rooster, if you have friends that might be looking for a rooster, we always encourage you to call into the shelter, come visit. Sparta is housed on our dog adoption floor. He's perfectly safe. He's got hay. He's got, as you can see, a pole that he can kind of perch on. He's got a little housing unit and some safety in there. So we're not fluent necessarily in farm animals. The quicker we can get them adopted, the better for us. Our shelter really is designed for primarily cat and dog housing, but again, open admission is open admission. So any animal that needs us within Frederick County limits, regardless of species, we take in. So this is Sparta. He's very handsome. He's fairly social. Haven't had any feedback from staff in a negative capacity, so we are looking to having him adopted out. So again, this is Sparta, currently our local rooster in the shelter. And that wraps it up for this week's Pet Pals. We're glad you could join us. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any questions about any of the animals that you saw today, we encourage you to either call the shelter or come in and visit, and hopefully maybe you can find your new best friend in the collection that we saw today. So again, thanks for joining us on Pet Pals, and we will see you next week.